Hey guys, YouTube 100 here. Alright, now here I am continuing on with these reviews of live action movies based on cartoons. And now for my next review, this is going to be a review for The Flintstones. Oh, gosh. This movie is just absolutely awful. I mean, yeah, even as a kid, I didn't like this movie. Yeah, I mean, yeah, and I was actually like in the age range for this movie. Like, I was born the year this movie came out, so yeah, so I was actually like in the age range for this movie when it was released, and yeah, and even as a kid, I didn't like it. Yeah, just seriously, this movie is just so freaking stupid, and it's just awful. I mean, seriously, come on, what were they thinking with this? Yeah, I mean, so yeah, so I already did talk about the Flintstones back in December when I reviewed Christmas Flintstone or Flintstone Christmas. Yeah, I did say that I did like the Flintstones cartoon a lot. Like I did watch it growing up. Like it was shown on like a Nickelodeon and Cartoon Network as I was growing up, and yeah, and I liked the show. I mean, the show was just like really good. I mean, yeah, like I have just like I was saying before, just yeah, this was like one of the very first shows like animated shows in prime time. So yeah, so it really is like a revolutionary show. Yeah, and like I said, just yeah, I mean, just I really do love the Flintstones. Like the it's just like such a clever concept because yeah, the thought of like the caveman age, like looking like modern times. Like I said, that's just a great idea for a cartoon. Like that's just like there's just like so much humor that could be done with that and yeah and they really did deliver with it when like in the cartoon like it really was just like a lot of the jokes were just like so great and yeah and it really was like a really funny concept and yeah and a lot of the jokes did work in this movie they do not. So, yeah, I mean just yeah as I said just yeah the caveman age looking like modern times is a great idea for a cartoon like that's just so funny but seeing it in live action it's just flat out stupid. Like a lot of the jokes just do not work in live action. Like they just look so freaking dumb and ridiculous. So, yeah, I do not know what they were thinking. Like, whose idea was it to make the Flintstones in live action? Seriously, I mean, did they even think of like how stupid this was gonna look? I mean, did they just like think that this sounded like a good idea on paper, and then they decided to just go through with it? But yeah, it really just backfired on them because yeah, this was just the jokes just do not work at all in live action. Like a lot of the jokes just look absolutely are just absolutely stupid. Yeah. So yeah, so I really do think that that's really like the main problem with this film. Just like it just does not the jokes do not work in live action. Like this was originally a cartoon for a reason. Like so yeah, so I just think that just they ruined it by making it live action. Like if this was an animated movie, I really think that it would have turned out a lot better. Like if they would have just like made an animated Flintstones movie, it would have worked out a lot better. But yeah, it just yeah, live action, it basically just ruins it. Because yeah, like I said, just these jokes really do not work in live action at all. Yeah, and it just looks like absolutely stupid, you know? And another problem with this movie is the casting. I really feel they made like a lot of really bad choices for casting in this movie. So in the movie, like you, it stars John Goodman as Fred Flintstone, and quite honestly, I really don't think like John Goodman really was a bad choice to play Fred Flintstone. I really do think that overall, like I do think that that was actually a good choice for casting. So yeah, so I really don't think that John Goodman really was a bad choice. But pretty much everyone else, they're just like the absolute wrong choices. In this movie, it's Rick Moranis as Barney Rubble, and yeah, you also do have Elizabeth Perkins as Wilma, and you have Rosie O'Donnell as Betty. And yeah, I mean, you can kind of like see what the problems are, especially like with Rick Moranis and Rosie O'Donnell. Like, just what are you thinking? Those are just the absolute wrong choices for the roles of the Rubbles. They're just seriously, I do not buy Rick Moranis as Barney at all. Just he's just the absolute wrong choice for a character like that. I mean, couldn't you have gotten like somebody that would actually like have a good voice of Barney and actually like look like bigger like Barney was in the cartoon? Like, I mean, couldn't you get like somebody like Bill Fagerbaki or somebody to play Barney in this movie? But you get Rick Moranis. I mean, the guy that played Wayne Selinsky and the guy from, and he was also in like Spaceballs and Little Shop of Horrors, and this is who you get to play Barney Rubble. I mean, seriously, yeah. And Rosie O'Donnell. I mean, what the freaking hell is them? Are they thinking like you're gonna cast like Rosie O'Donnell as Betty Rubble? Like, oh my gosh, what in the world? What are you guys thinking? Yeah. And this movie also has cast members like there's a Kyle MacLachlan, Halle Berry, Elizabeth Taylor, and yeah, and just yeah, a lot of them do not work in the movie at all. Like just this movie is just like such a like these are just like wrong choices for cast members left and right throughout this movie. So yeah, so that's another problem with the film. Not just that the jokes don't work in live action, but also the casting. Yeah, yeah. And this movie was directed by Brian Levant, who, of course, like, if you know his track record of movies, like, yeah, you know that it's not very good. I mean, he directed films like Beethoven, Problem Child 2, who, he directed also Jingle All the Way and Snow Dog, which, yeah, I've talked about those movies before, and I have said that overall I do like them, but I wouldn't exactly say that they're real classics. So Brian Levant, like, just yeah, if you know his track, if you know his history of movies, like that should tell you something about like how this movie is going to turn out. So this film really does have like problems left and right, and yeah, so I really just really feel that like these are problems that really could have been like easily avoided, but they just really didn't know what they were doing when they were making this film. Yeah, just yeah, I mean, the Flintstones is not meant for live action. I mean, you don't. I mean, these are just the wrong cast members, a bad director, and yeah, and this movie also is just like very cliche. Like it just has like all these like typical cliches that we've seen before, and it's just like it's really boring and it's just dumb. And a lot of the stuff in the movie really just doesn't advance. Most of this movie, well, yeah, this movie's kind of like just filled with, like I said, a lot of like things that are known from the cartoon. But yeah, like I said, just it doesn't work in live action. Like you got stuff like, of course, Fred and Barney. Like you have the stuff with like how like the cars like did do work in the Flintstones, where like they're not really like powered by gas. All it is really is just like they move by like the people actually like walking, like they're moving their feet. Yeah, yeah, and you got like all the stuff with like garbage disposals and then like using chisels as pencils, and it's like stone as paper and all this other stuff. And just like I said, seeing the stuff in live action, it's just dumb. It's not funny in live action. As I have been saying, like the Flintstones was originally a cartoon for a reason. Just yeah, these jokes just do not work in live action. So yeah, and I really do feel that that really is the movie's main problem. So yeah, even if like, it's like really trying to be faithful to the cartoon, like I said, it just doesn't work in live action. So yeah, so just this movie, yeah. I mean, Nostalgia Critic made a review on this movie, and yeah, he really just said how this movie is really like filled with like a bunch of like really short scenes that really don't go anywhere there, and it's pretty useless. And yeah, and even like the film's main story really is like very cliched. All it really is how Fred has like kind of like a twisted vice president in the company that he works for, and yeah, he comes up with this scheme to frame an employee for the schemes that he's been committing, and then yeah, then like it winds up being Fred who is the one that gets like roped into this stuff, and then yeah, and then it ends up like messing up Fred's relationship with Wilma and the Rubbles, and then yeah, then they like break away from each other. Then Fred ends up getting framed for the problems, and then yeah, then the town blames him. Then yeah, then the family then comes to his rescue, and then yeah, then they frame the guy responsible, and yeah, And it really is like one of those kinds of stories where like it's just like the twisted boss that does frame somebody and then they get caught in the end. Yeah. So just I just really do feel that they could have done something like really much better. I mean, make it animated for one, and just make it like a story that really is just like not so cliche and boring. And so yeah, so so I just really don't know what else to say. I mean, just yeah, I think I've really been just like riffing about it. It's so much already, and yeah, and I just feel like I'm really like sounding like a broken record now because I just keep saying the same stuff. So yeah, so like I said, I just really do not like this film. Even as a kid, I didn't like it, and I just really don't see like how anybody can like it. I mean, do they not really like see the problems that this movie does have? I mean, the problems are like really obvious. So yeah, so I am not really like understanding like how people can actually like this movie. So yeah, so the film just is absolutely terrible. So I would like give this probably like a 1.5 stars out of 4. Like it's just a horrible movie. All right, so yeah, so let me just get into it and talk about the premise of the movie. So yeah, so as the movie opens up, it does show how like the Slate and Company's vice president Cliff Vandercave, along with his secretary Sharon Stone, are like talking about plans to swindle the company of its vast fortune and pinning the theft on an employee. Yeah, and then it and like shows them like reenacting the opening of the cartoon when it even has like the Flintstones theme song. It shows how Fred is like getting off of work. He's clocking out, like having the dinosaur like bite his time card. Yeah. Then he like drives home, picks up the family, and then they head to the drive-in theater and watch the movie. So that's something else I really like. Like it doesn't make sense because if they are really just like going to the drive-in to actually watch this movie, like what was up with that opening? And with like the with the antagonists of the movie, because isn't that stuff technically like didn't it happen in the past if the Flintstones family are actually going to watch the movie? So yes, I guess that's something else about the film that really is another problem. Just it doesn't make sense for them to use that scene of the villain in the beginning of the movie. Yeah, but anyway, okay. Yeah, so when the movie does officially start, it has like this the really bad universal pun sitting universe shell. Yeah. And then yeah, then as it kicks off, it shows that Fred has loaned some money to Barney so that he and Betty can adopt Bam Bam. Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, so it does like show the rebels adopting Bam Bam like they did in the show. Yeah. Yeah. And it shows like at first how Bam Bam really he is like very hard to control because he's like very strong. Well, yeah, and it also like they do like show how Bam Bam can only pronounce his name, and throughout the movie, Barney is trying to get Bam Bam to say Dada, but all Bam Bam can say is Bam Bam. Yeah, yeah. But over time, like Bam Bam does warm up to his parents, and he also does befriend Pebbles, yeah, the Flintstones' daughter. Yeah, yeah, and it then it also shows how Wilma's mother, Pearl, is really objecting to Fred loaning money to the rebels, but Wilma is supportive of Fred's decision. Yeah, yeah. Then it shows how Cliff is like holding an aptitude test with all the workers of Sladen Company rather. Yeah, and he is like and the test will like he is having the condition that whoever has the highest the worker with the highest mark will become the new vice president of the company. Yeah, and it shows how like of course like both Fred and Barney are part of the company, so they're taking the test. Yeah, and it shows how like just Fred is just like just doesn't really know like what the answers are, and he really is like knowing he's gonna fail the test as he's taking it. Yeah, but yeah, it shows how Barney like does have the highest score of the test, but Barney then like as a favor to Fred for like loaning him the money and also like having them like win a bowling tournament or something. Yeah, and Barney then like switches his test with Fred, and Fred ends up receiving the promotion, which has perks of like a luxurious office and Stone, yeah, Sharon Stone, who's played by Halle Berry, who is appointed as Fred's secretary. Yeah, Yeah, but then yeah, then with like Cliff is like actually Fred's like boss for this job. Yeah, and then like because like Barney had the lowest score of that test, which like was actually Fred's that Barney swapped it, of course. Yeah, because of that, Cliff asked Fred to dismiss Barney because he just feels that Barney really just because of like the him having the lowest score, he just really will have like no like he's like of no value to the work team. Yeah. So yeah, at first like Fred really just wasn't willing to fire Barney, but then after Cliff didn't just told Fred that if he doesn't fire Barney, Cliff will, along with Fred, then Fred then reluctantly he fired Barney that night. And yeah, but yeah, it showed how Fred was like still helping Barney support his family. And even when like when Barney was just like struggling to find a job, then they had to rent out their house. Fred allowed the Rubbles to stay to live with them. Yeah, yeah. But then over time, it showed how like Fred's job and like his new wealth is like really like affecting the his relationships with Wilma and the Rubbles. Yeah. And then over time, it showed how Cliff then like just wound up like tricking Fred into dismissing other workers. Yeah, and it showed like in his office like there was a dictabird that was objecting to the orders. Yeah, yeah. Then it was like shown on TV how Barney like was confronting Fred after like he like saw that like there were like all the workers that were rioting, and then yeah, then Barney then revealed to Fred that he's like switched tests with Fred. Had and then yeah, then it caused like a falling out. Fred just like thinking that the rebels just were like jealous and ungrateful and all that stuff. And then yeah, then the rebels then decided to move out, and Wilma, just upset with Fred's attitude, then just took Pebbles and left for her mother's house and left Fred alone. Yeah. Then eventually, then Fred then like discovered what Cliff was planning to do, and then he tried to explain things to his like real the boss of the company, Mr. Slate. Hey, and tried to ask him to fire Cliff, but then yeah, then it showed like the events were like like because of like Fred manipulating the event, it looked as if like Fred actually like stole this money that Cliff did by like laying off all the employees and everything. How Cliff like all ended up like stealing all this money, and then yeah, then like like Fred was framed for it, and then it showed that the theft had been reported to the police, and then yeah, then Fred then just like tried to flee, but then a manhunt then ensued by the police and the all the laid off workers, and then as Wilma and Betty then like saw it on the news, like Wilma knew that Fred was innocent, but yeah, they had to actually like get like a true witness to clear Fred. Yeah, so then they broke into Slade and Company, and then they got the Dicta Bird, but yeah, it showed that like Cliff then actually saw them um, leaving through his office window. Yeah. Then eventually, then as Fred then tried to like get into the workers' cave in disguise, he ended up being discovered, and then the workers then all went after Fred and then tried to hang him. But then yeah, then it showed Barney was now like a snow cone truck driver. Then yeah, then he was just like also like explaining things and was admitting to his role by like switching the test and everything. So then the workers then decided to hang Barney too. Then Fred and Barney then reconciled as they were being prepared to or to be hung. Yeah, but then yeah, then Wilma, Betty, and the Dicta Bird then arrived, and then yeah, then Wilma and the Dicta Bird and then said how Cliff framed Fred, and Cliff is the one responsible for stealing the money and all the workers being laid off. Yeah, yeah. Then when the Flintstones and Rubbles then returned back home, they then saw that their house just like ended up being broken into and it was burglarized with both Dino and Pearl tied up. Oh yeah, that's another thing. I didn't even actually talk about like Dino and everything. Yeah, of course. Yeah, like Dino is of course the pet dinosaur, and he looks absolutely awful in this film. Like just yeah, the CGI for Dino, like just the effects are just absolutely awful for Dino and the other animals in this film. So yeah, so that's another problem. Just it has awful effects for the animals or the dinosaurs. So yeah, so that's another problem that I didn't even mention with the film. Yeah, but anyway, getting back to this, yeah. Then they also saw how Pebbles and Bam Bam ended up being kidnapped, and they found a note from Cliff saying that he'll trade the children back to them in exchange for the Dictabird. So the next morning, then Fred and Barney then went to the quarry and confronted Cliff, and Cliff then revealed that he had Pebbles and Bam Bam tied to like a machine that like destroys like huge rocks. Yeah, and then yeah, then they then handed the Dictabird over to a Cliff, but then yeah, Cliff then activated the machine to stall Fred and Barney to give him time to actually get away. Yeah. So then yeah, then as Fred and Barney worked together to save Pebbles and Bam Bam, as Barney went to save the kids, and Fred tried to stop the machine. Yeah, then the Dictabird eventually ended up escaping from Cliff, and then lured Cliff back over to the quarry. And then yeah, then as Cliff then like had a standoff with Fred. Stone then incapacitated Cliff because yeah, earlier on like Cliff revealed that like he had his plan was to just turn on her and just escape without her. So yeah, here like she had a change of heart and helped Fred. Yeah, yeah. Then the kids ended up being saved, and then yeah, then and Fred ended up stopping Cliff by like causing uh, a substance from the machine created by the machine to just fall down on Cliff and just petrify him and pretty much bury him in it. Yeah. Then the police, Wilma, Betty, and Mr. Slate, then all arrived, and then yeah, Cliff ended up being stopped, and then also uh, Stone was also taken into custody. Yeah. Yeah. Then after Fred and the Dictabird then like explained Cliff's actions to the police, the charges against Fred are dropped, and then Mr. Slate then was like impressed with the substance that Fred ended up creating when he destroyed the machine, and then he dubbed the substance Concrete in honor of his daughter Concretia, and he declared the Stone Age over. Then Mr. Slate then just asked for the all the workers to be rehired, and then also had plans to produce concrete with Fred leading the division. But yeah, Fred ultimately ended up turning it down because of like the experiences that he had with the wealth and status. He then just asked for everybody to be given 2 weeks paid leave for their salary, and then he just wanted to return to his normal life. Yeah. Like yeah, then the movie then ended with just like the Flintstones and Rubbles. They're just embracing each other now, reuniting. Yeah, then the movie's like real end. Then like it showed the movie ending in the drive-in theater. Then the Flintstones then like reenacting the closing of the show where they leave the drive-in. Fred picks up like a huge rack of ribs. It tips the car over. Then they arrive back home, walk inside. Then Fred then like throws out the cat, and the cat comes back in through the window and puts Fred outside and locks him out. Then Fred pounding the door, shouting "Wilma," and that's how the movie ended. So as you can tell, like by how I was talking about the film with its premise, yeah, you can see how it's like just very cliched and it's really boring. Just yeah, we have these cliches of like the crooked boss who like frames an employee, causes him to do things he doesn't want to, and yeah, then it gets him into trouble. The boss frames him, and then he's got to clear his name, and then yeah, he also breaks away from his family and friends, and they eventually reconcile, and then they finally get get the one behind it, and then yeah, then they have like a big climax and all that stuff. So yeah, so the story is just like very very cliched. So yeah, so so it's very cliched, and yeah, like I said, there's just like a lot of scenes that really just do not go anywhere and are just useless to the story. And as I was also saying, just yeah, the jokes do not work in live action. Whether it is just like with like how they're using like animals as like appliances and stuff, and yeah, and with them like controlling cars by just like moving their feet and all this other stuff, like the stone as paper, the chisels as pencils, and all this other stuff. Just it just looks so stupid in live action, and it doesn't work. Yeah, and I you also forgot to mention like the film does have like a lot of cartoony sound effects through it, and it's just dumb. I'm like whether it's like clings on the head or Fred's twinkle toes, like that noise, and all that other stuff. Just yeah, the sound effects in this film are also really really annoying as well. So yeah, so I can really just go on and on about like all the problems that this film really does have. There's actually really a lot to talk about, but yeah, but I'll just like conclude by saying just this film really was just like a very very wasted opportunity. It had like a lot of problems that seemed like very very obvious, and yeah, this film was really just like it's awful. It doesn't work in live action, and yeah, and just gosh, I mean, I do not know what they were thinking when they did this. So yeah, so the film really is just like absolutely awful. So like I said, I give this film 1.5 stars out of 4. It just is like just a terrible movie, and I just really don't know like how they could screw it up this badly. So yeah, so even if you do like the Flintstones, I just say that if you haven't seen this movie, just keep it that way. Just stick to the cartoons because that's where the humor and the jokes actually do work, not in this stupid crap. So yeah, so I guess that's all I can really say about it. Because if I just continue on, I'll just be like sounding like a broken record, and I'll just be like complaining by the wayside. So yeah, so I guess I'll just stop talking about it right now. All right. So yeah, so this does it for my review of the Flintstones. So I hope you guys did enjoy. And yeah, and despite the fact that this movie really was so bad, wouldn't you know they actually did another one? But rather than doing a sequel to this movie, they wound up making a prequel. So yeah, so they actually made a prequel to this film, and even like a prequel from the events of the cartoon as well. So yeah, so how did that actually turn out? Well, tune in next time, and I'll tell you about it. Yes, next up I'll be reviewing the prequel to this film. So stay tuned for that film coming up next. All right, but yeah, but that does it for this review. So I hope you guys enjoy what I had to say about it. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys later.